Triple H throws major shade at AEW in a recent interview ahead of Clash at the Castle. Braun Strowman is set to return to WWE on Monday Night Raw next week. Sasha Banks an update on her future from Triple H himself. We also have an update on Tyson Fury's Clash at the Castle status. All this and more in today's WWE news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE. So let's start off talking about this interview that Triple H has done with Ariel Helwani ahead of Clash at the Castle this coming weekend. Tomorrow, of course, is the time of the big event. And the whole WWE crew is in the UK ahead of that Clash at the Castle event at the Principality Stadium in Cardiff tomorrow. And Triple H has done an interview with Ariel Helwani, and he has spoken on the NXT changes, his hiatus, the NXT Wednesday Night Wars with All Elite Wrestling, and it's really interesting as to what he said here. I think this is the biggest story certainly today. Now, Triple H has spoken, as I mentioned, on this war with AEW and the Wednesday Night Wars, all that kind of stuff. Now, for the first year and a half of AEW Dynamite's lifespan and existence as a television program, it was up against WWE's NXT every Wednesday night. Of course, at the time, Dynamite was on TNT and NXT was on USA Network. After Dynamite went on to beat NXT in both total viewership and the key demos on a very regular basis, the Black and Gold brand moved to Tuesday nights in April of 2021. NXT eventually was transformed into NXT 2.0 in the months after the move, with Triple H reportedly having less of a say in the product. Now, some fans around the world of wrestling looked at this more of a potential punishment for Triple H due to the fact that NXT had regularly lost to Dynamite in the ratings. Now, in a new interview with Ariel Helwani of BT Sport, Triple H cleared up the rumours surrounding that situation. It's a bit of a lengthy quote here, but you're going to have to indulge me because all of these words are incredibly important. So when asked if the changes of NXT was a punishment or was a reaction to the loss to AEW in the Wednesday Night War, Triple H said, quote, No, people put so much pressure on this competitive war. It was never that. First of all, they beat our developmental system. Good for them. It was never that. There never was pressure of you have to beat them. It was never that. It was put on the best product we could. It shifted over time. During the pandemic, all of that shifted. The opportunity for us to change it back to what it truly was. When you look at a lot of the stars that have come through that system that had either started from zero or had very little exposure anywhere and then became massive stars of us, it's so many people. We had lost the ability to take those people and groom them from the ground up. We really had. It's the biggest change that's out there. I'm proud of where Sean and that team have taken that, even under circumstances where the change happened and was massive and all at once, and they had to jumble this thing thrown at them and had to go out there and take it and run with it. The job they've done is amazing, and now you're starting to see people they have a clean slate, and all these athletes you've never heard of, have never seen, and they're green and they're not they're doing this. You're now seeing it pick up tempo again and start to become what it is truly once again, Triple H said. I truly believe in that brand still. The decision to pull NXT UK back, it's the right decision for us. We had plans to do what we're going to do now then, right before the pandemic hit and took it all away. We weren't able to do that. Our partnership with BT allowed it to stay on the air in the whole, but the truth is, it was totally different from where we wanted it to go. We're pulling it off the air now so that we can get NXT Europe because it's tough to do both at the same time. Continue to operate a product, but build a new product around it. We're going to pull it off a little bit, bring NXT Europe back in a bigger way than it ever was before, and the intent is, hopefully, if we're successful, to replicate that so it's NXT Europe, NXT India, NXT South Africa, NXT Mexico. Take those products, put them around everywhere, and eventually build up brands in those markets locally and build World Cup scenarios around that to where they are competing on the level all over the globe, and that tide feeds into Raw and SmackDown. If Raw and SmackDown are the NFL, NXT is collegiate football. It's all a feeder system to the overall picture. Now, Triple H was also asked about the idea that AEW is indeed competition, as well as the notorious line that Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan often drop about everything being competition to WWE. Quote, "It's not a cop-out answer. Everything is competition to us. We pay attention to everything. You have to. Do we pay attention to AEW? Do I watch it on a week-to-week basis? No. Am I aware of what's happening there? To a degree. I'm not following everything that they do. There are sometimes I'll see somebody say, oh, that's very similar to what you're doing. I have no idea. At the end of the day, do you have to focus on what you're doing? You have to focus on your product, and it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. If people want to watch that product, there is nothing I can do about it. There is nothing to prevent me from doing that. Focus on my product, make my product the best product it can possibly be. I have the confidence in that ability. From this team, the talent we have, I'll put our talent against anybody. That is how you are successful. Monday Night Football is a massive thing for us. We pay attention to that. We pay attention to all sports on television. We're very strategic about where we put our events and how, not because we think, oh, we'll try and block that. We put them in places where we think we will do the best business. That's all it is. And there is nothing more to it than that. That's where people get lost in the small thinking of what happens on a day-to-day basis. It's the much bigger overall picture that needs to stay in front of you and where you're trying to get to. Now, there's lots of other things he discussed in that interview, and we will talk about them as we go on. But the biggest thing that's getting people talking about it, of course, is that part where he said, first of all, they beat our developmental system. Good for them. The thing is with this comment, right, is he's not wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say that NXT wasn't a developmental system, and I've said a million times here on the channel, right, go and watch every video I've done when I've spoke about AEW or NXT, even when it was happening at the time. Of course, AEW should have and beat NXT because they had bigger stars, they had bigger names. If you had Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes in WWE, they'd all be on the main roster. Cody Rhodes is the best example of it. Cody Rhodes left AEW, he went to WWE, he could be the guy that beats Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship, right? That's the point. Like, he's a big star. So in comparison to NXT's roster, they had Adam Cole and they had Keith Lee, but these aren't giant stars. These aren't stars of the names of Chris Jericho or Jon Moxley or, CM Punk. I know Punk was involved in those wars, but you get my point. Like, the AEW should have always won that. So that's one thing. And to his point, yeah, they beat their developmental. Good for them, right? The thing that I think is very disingenuous about what Triple H is saying here is he has changed his tune dramatically. How many times, how many conference calls, how many media calls, how many interviews have we seen Triple H when he was the executive producer of NXT saying, it's not developmental, don't call it that. Don't call it developmental. Don't say getting called up from the main roster. Don't say down there in NXT because it's a third brand. Yes, you have Raw and SmackDown's Hollywood. We're like Broadway. It's not developmental. It's not developmental whatsoever. It's a third brand. It's a third brand. So wait a minute. When you're in charge, you can call it a third brand. But now it was always developmental. That's shifting the goalposts. That is what that is. Again, can't take away from AEW's accomplishment in beating WWE because that's what they did. They didn't beat Raw, they didn't beat SmackDown, but they beat WWE, a WWE brand. And again, Triple H can have revisionist history about this, but make no mistake, NXT being on the USA Network was counter-programming to AEW. That's exactly what it was. And I know people will say, no, NXT was always on Wednesday nights on the WWE Network. There is a massive difference between being a taped show for 1 hour on the WWE Network to a 2-hour live broadcast on the exact same night in the same time slots as your rival competition. AEW was announced first, and then WWE decided we're going to try and counter-program because it's in their best interest for AEW to fail. They tried to counter-program them by putting NXT on the air. They tried to counter-program them by offering ginormous contracts to people they had no interest in using. The late Brody Lee got offered more money than he'd ever been offered in his life and was actively told, we have no plans for you, but we want to keep you under contract. They offered him a big contract. That's what they were doing at the time. So for Triple H in this interview to say, it was just developmental, it's not really a big victory for them, it's shifting the goalposts. It really is. It's fine for him to go, it was competitive and we didn't win, but they should beat us because they had bigger stars at the time. That is an accurate assessment of the situation. You can't now retrospectively say, no, it was always developmental. No, because that's not what you were saying. And the idea of him saying, we really don't pay attention to what they're doing on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. Yes, they were. They were paying attention with NXT. NXT, certainly on a minute-to-minute basis. It's there, the footage, the photographs are there of this. At the NXT tapings at Full Sail University, there were televisions that were actively tuned in to Dynamite on TNT to see what they were doing. And again, that's not embarrassing. That's not embarrassing. They used to do it all the time, WWE and WCW, on Nitro and Raw back in the 90s. But this idea of revisionist history of, well, they beat developmental and this kind of stuff, no, come on. Now, his comments about the changes to NXT, I don't think NXT was changed as punishment to Triple H. I don't think so whatsoever. I think that's quite, conspiracy stuff when it comes to WWE. I think Triple H is accurate in what he's saying, that NXT was changed because it needed to go back to developmental. They weren't really... that brand, because it wasn't a developmental brand anymore, it wasn't functioning for what its purpose was, and that's to create stars. It wasn't doing that. Now, frankly, the reason that you could argue that NXT wasn't creating stars is because in reality it actually was creating stars. It would create stars in a certain gimmick and they'd have a character, and then they get to the main roster and Vince McMahon would say, I don't like that character, change this, change this, change this, change this, and then he would say, wait a minute, why isn't this character over? Why aren't they relating to the audience? Why is the audience not jumping on this character? Well, because you've changed everything that made them popular in the first place. That's part of that as well. So make no mistake, it just wasn't functioning properly. That's the real situation. But again, to now describe NXT at the time in 2019 and 2020, oh, it was always developmental. It wasn't. If it was just developmental, why would you have your developmental brand beat both of the established brands in Raw and SmackDown at Survivor Series in 2019? It's because it wasn't developmental. They had NXT win at Survivor Series to try and give that brand credibility to beat AEW. So in my opinion, revisionist history. Now let's talk about Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman, we spoke about him the other day, is set to return to WWE, and we have an update on Strowman's future with the company. According to a report by PW Insider, Braun Strowman will be making his return to wrestle for WWE imminently. Now sources have confirmed that Strowman will be making his return this coming Monday night on Raw, airing out of Kansas City. Now no mention was made of Strowman possibly appearing at Clash at the Castle this weekend, indicating that fans probably shouldn't expect to see him at the event in Cardiff. So it's the chance, well, it's confirmed now at this point, not confirmed by WWE, but certainly multiple outlets, Fightful, have also reported this, that Braun Strowman is set to return this coming Monday in Kansas City for Monday Night Raw. And again, I think it's the best place for him. I really do. I think, as I mentioned, is Braun Strowman going to get as over as he was in 2016, 2017, 2018? The answer is no. I think WWE, unfortunately, did irreparable damage to Braun Strowman's ability to be a star. And Braun Strowman, 1,000,000% could have been a strong, dominating heel or babyface Universal Champion in 2017, 2018. What they did, though, with this guy is every time he got over and he was red hot, what did they have him do? They had him lose. They had him lose to Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar beat this guy about 1,000,000 times. By the time they pulled the trigger, and they only pulled the trigger on this guy because the pandemic hit and they had nobody else. By the time they made him the Universal Champion, it was too late. It was the pandemic. He wasn't over anyway. He was cold, and he had a really bad Universal Championship run. And then after that, they tweaked the character again, the Strowman Express, this, that, and it just didn't work. It didn't work. And is he ever going to get back to those heights? I mean, look, maybe the way that Triple H might book him could be just into this monstrous start. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see what he does when he returns. Triple H, in that same interview of Ariel Helwani, was also asked about Sasha Banks, and he had some interesting comments about Banks. Now, Ariel Helwani asked if Banks could potentially return to the company, and Triple H replied very cryptically. He said, quote, time will tell. In a lot of ways, communication breakdowns are terrible. There was a communication breakdown there for whatever reason. Starting back up that communication, it's not a difficult process, but it is a process, and you have to go through the process. She's an unbelievably talented young woman that can do just about anything she wants. It just comes down to, what does she want to do now with her life? Her career, whatever that is. The passion, clearly, for what we do, there is a passion for other things as well. It comes down to, what does she want to do? It has to be right for her. It has to be right for everybody. She is, as you've seen over the course of her career of coming into the PC at NXT, is an unbelievable performer that I believe in everything I have. That is one of the biggest stars in our business. It's just what she wants to do. I believe, and again, this is kind of not gone cold, but the expectation at this point is that Sasha Banks, and Naomi for that matter, but Sasha Banks will return to WWE, especially now that Triple H is in charge of talent relations and also creative too. And that, to me, that interview, I think, is really telling about truly what Triple H feels and how he believes or how he perceives Sasha Banks. He perceives her, as he mentioned, as one of the biggest stars in the business. And I think you could argue Vince McMahon, I don't think, ever truly saw Sasha Banks like that. You look at her booking over her time on the main roster, it's not great. I mean, she's been a women's champion was it 5 or 6 times? She's defended the bout successfully twice, 3 times, 4 times, something like that. Yes, she had a WrestleMania main event against Bianca Belair, but that felt like in spite of Vince McMahon. It felt like that was because other people were pulling for her in WWE. I have no doubt if she returns to the company, she will be pushed and perceived as one of the top stars, maybe the top female star in the company. I know right now it's Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch. I'm not even going to say Ronda Rousey because she feels completely cold, but I guess Ronda Rousey still has star power, Ronda Rousey. But if Sasha Banks comes back, she will be presented in a completely different way than Sasha Banks has ever been presented in WWE, in my opinion, on the main roster. So I expect her to return, and I expect her to be incredibly successful when she does. Clash of the Castles tomorrow, and we spoke about Tyson Fury the other day, but Tyson Fury has also confirmed his status for the weekend. Tyson Fury referred to the event as Thursday morning, when he'd be revealing he would be in attendance for the show. The British boxing legend announced via the WWE Twitter account that he'll be ringside at Clash at the Castle, a show centered around the main event of Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. Of course, this follows this earlier report in the week that we spoke about, suggesting Fury would be in attendance for the event. Now, again, we don't know what he's going to be doing. He said he's going to be ringside. Is there going to be an angle? Is there going to be something that he gets involved in? We do know that any form of physicality is really, really unlikely, since chances are, whilst it hasn't been announced and contracts aren't particularly close for his championship unification fight against Alexander Usyk, the chances are he is already in preparation for that next year. Rumors are sort of a February time date, Saudi Arabia, something like that. So he wouldn't want to risk an injury, but certainly he's going to be ringside. Will he get involved at the event, i.e. a segment? Will something else happen because of his interference? I don't know. But Tyson Fury will be in attendance tomorrow night at Clash at the Castle in Cardiff. Solo Sikoa, we spoke about the third Uso brother and what's going to happen with his future. And Solo Sikoa could be the latest member of the Anoa'i family to join WWE's main roster full-time. PW Insider is reporting that the son of Rikishi, the cousin of Roman Reigns, and the brother to Jimmy and Jey Uso is expected to be promoted from NXT 2.0 as soon as possible. And it could happen as early as this month if everything goes according to plan. If the report is accurate, Sikoa will also join the SmackDown brand alongside Reigns and the Usos. Now, while no plans have been confirmed just yet, the rumored brand, coupled with Sikoa's family heritage, seems to make him a perfect fit for the bloodline, but that is all speculation for the time being. Now, Sikoa had previously said that actually he didn't really want to be involved in the bloodline stuff, and he wanted to create his own legacy. What we have seen with Jimmy and Jey Uso is that they show up on programming. Remember how they both joined the bloodline in the first place? They sort of pushed and shoved and kicked and screamed, but eventually they fell in line. Could we see a similar thing with Solo Sikoa, or could they use this guy as the finish for Clash at the Castle tomorrow? Is this the way out that they're looking for? A bit of interference from the latest member of the Bloodline. Certainly a possibility, but expect to see Solo Sikoa with the Bloodline, or certainly at the very least on SmackDown in the very near future. Finally, WWE tweeted out a previously banned word. They actually did it. They said the thing, well, they tweeted it at the very least. Wrestling. WWE's official Twitter account posted on Thursday. The tweet now appears to be part of a corporate meme trend, as the Washington Post tweeted news, while fellow publication Axios responded with source. Amtrak tweeted trains. Bloomberg tweeted business. While apparently part of the trend, the former World Wrestling Entertainment deciding on wrestling instead of entertainment does feel like a sign of a new ethos in the company. It had been reported earlier in August that certain banned terms in WWE would no longer be forbidden in the wake of Triple H taking over the company's creative direction. Drew McIntyre even said, quote, "We're wrestlers in a wrestling ring, let's freaking wrestle," during a fiery verbal exchange with Kevin Owens last month, spewing the dreaded W word 3 times in a row. So there you go. It would appear that WWE is firmly now back to being a wrestling company, and it's about time. But nevertheless, guys, let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.